in December now in 2020. This time last year, when you would have been planning for what would have happened in 2020, what actually did go ahead? Obviously, a lot of stuff from March on was affected by COVID-19.
Yeah, it was, to be honest, is something we would be very good at planning, and we laugh and joke inside in the department itself that we've already got dates in our diary for 22 and 23 because courses are running into over a 2-year period, and we have events that we're moving around the country. So we want to plan ahead, but I don't think anything could have prepared us for what happened in March and COVID. And we had started the year successfully. We had held our women's football conference, which was our signature event once a year. Our coaching conference, that was fully booked out and attended, which is a free event that's booked out and will be in the west of the country in February of next year. And really all of a sudden then it hit us, and it was really, we decided, Craig and I specifically with Rue Doctor, that let's take stock here, let's take a step back, and let's not rush into things. And let's see what we can create that will be valuable for coaches. I don't think at the start, none of us could have imagined it would have gone on for as long as what it has. But I think we did the right thing, and I think we took a little bit of time. We identified that it was a good opportunity to really evaluate what we're doing, to really evaluate the content, to update all of the materials, to utilize the time that sometimes is washed away because we're so busy, we're delivering so much that sometimes you don't get that opportunity to really quality assure every single thing that you're doing. So we've really done that, and we've worked with our development officers in the design of a new 4-year-old to 6-year-old program. We've worked with all of our coach educators and updating the content and introducing video content. So it was really about doing a lot of that behind the scenes. And then in the summertime with Garrett Marr, we launched the webinar series, and I think that was really successful, Craig. I think that was the big signature event for us in terms of what we did this year.
Craig, I suppose with that, when in the summer, and I know Gareth worked with you in the coach education department, how important was that every Saturday morning you had fresh content going out, that people, even though they mightn't be able to get onto the field during the summer, they were still able to sort of actively engage and actively learn?
I think that was the big thing that you said, that I was actively engaged, and Niall kind of alluded that earlier on. Many nations kind of jumped in early on and moved online really quickly, kind of February, March time. And we took our time on that, and we wanted to plan it out properly. We didn't want to put things out there that weren't of high quality, and that was a big conscious decision that we made. And the big thing for us was it gave us a little bit of stuff to work towards. Every week we had to plan, every week we had to structure a week. So it kind of felt like we were still working, we were still developing coaches, we were still putting our feet on the ground as much as we can. And then that in turn had an impact on the coaches, that they had something to look towards every Saturday morning, that they could engage with things. And even for them to link in with CPD, it gave us a really big opportunity to allow the opportunity to give coaches CPD and for them to access it, where some coaches we generally don't give online CPD. We have small elements of it, but it was a big push towards online CPD, and it gave us a nice opportunity towards that. But it gave us some sort of normality in our weeks, if I'm being honest with you. We had something to work towards, and then we had something to deliver on a Saturday, which was absolutely fantastic from our point of view.
I suppose at the start of lockdown, anyone that had kids or knows someone who's a teacher would have seen the challenges of working online compared to working face-to-face. Craig, I suppose when you're so used to being on a pitch with coaches of all levels, it's easy to teach and inform them. It's far easier to do that face-to-face. What was it like going from that to a Microsoft Teams call, something similar to what we're on now?
Yeah, well, it's researched out there, and it's a lot of what we do is research driven in coach education, and we try and create environments where there's formal learning, there's informal learning, and there's non-formal learning. And the informal learning is the greatest learner in terms of people's own development and what they network and how they develop with each other. And obviously working off a screen and speaking to each other on Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever it may be, you don't really get that informal learning in terms of having cups of tea with people and breakouts in between lectures or on the side of a pitch, and that's gone. So the big challenge for us was, how could we still have some elements of informal learning by creating breakout rooms, by having times where people have their own access to each other in between the contact blocks and things like that. So we had to become really, really creative to create informal learning environments. It's not the same, we know that, and we absolutely appreciate it's not the same. So we had to be kind of clear on what we were trying to achieve by the online stuff, because there's no point in us just going online and thinking it was going to be the same. We knew it wasn't. So we tried to make sure that we had clear objectives of what we were trying to reach every time we went online, and that was important to map out to everybody, not just our own staff, but the participants as well.
Now, you spoke there about, I suppose, all the planning that goes into the coach education department, and you had a chance in the first quarter of the year to maybe plan ahead for some things. But I suppose one of the big things in coach education this year was the coach education pathway, and that's been years in the planning, and it was released in the end in the summer.
Yeah, and it's like anything. I think people will always say one of the things that they notice what we have done over the last number of years in the high performance department, and specifically it's probably something Ruth Doctor specifically speaks about when he talks about having the three principal areas to evolve, excel and inspire. And that's our ethos within high performance. And that's what the coach education pathway is. We launched it in the summer. We presented it to a number of stakeholders. We presented it on courses to staff. And we've taken all of their feedback on again. And we only recently, in the last 2 weeks, presented it to UEFA in a country share exchange where you had 10 countries presenting how they're going to deliver their own coach education and implement the coaching convention from 2020 into it. So it was very interesting to see even the feedback that we got there. And we've already seen updates to the pathway. And that's something that I really enjoy doing. I think it's so important that we don't stand still. Football doesn't stand still. Every month, every game, it changes, and we have to show that, evolve and lead by example. And I think our visuals in terms of the pathway have done that. And it's a really exciting time. Like next year is going to be a huge year for us because we're introducing the UEFA C license, the UEFA GKB license, the UEFA Elite UB license. But we're also introducing more conferences, more CPD events, and probably the biggest one of all is a learning management system where we will be transitioning formally to our CPD requirements, our license database, our coaches database, and sort of a coaches learning tool online, which we're really excited about in January. And I think taking time earlier in the year made sense because it allowed people to figure out what they needed to do themselves. And I think in the last 6 weeks, we've started to really deliver our courses again online. And an example of the best practice and what the development officers have done on the ground through the stewardship of Ross Kenny and Rob Sweeney and Richie Smith and Craig in the admin side of the house in terms of the department and designing the courses. I think in the last 6 weeks, we've had 1,400 grassroots coaches do a PDP1 online, which is phenomenal. And I think that was over 77 different courses. So that really shows the hunger that even though it is online, there's still huge demands for people to want to better themselves for when they get back on the pitch. And I think that's the key thing. We all want to get back on the pitch. We all want to get back to that delivery style. But there have certainly been some positives. It hasn't been all negative in terms of what we've taken from COVID and 2020.
Craig, just on that, from what Niall has said, like there's an opportunity for someone who wants to coach their son or daughter for the first time going into their local club the whole way up to the senior international teams. With that, there are, and I know I suppose it is the word of the year, but there are plenty of positives to take from these things. So what has coach education taken from 2020 that hopefully we can now bring into 2021?
Well, I think there's definitely different access points now that we can offer. So whether that's a blended learning through online plus face-to-face delivery, as in that can be on one course, we can have a blended delivery. It can be fully online or it can be the face-to-face. So I think it's really opened their eyes to how accessible we can make things for people. Because in some regions or some areas or some people may find coach education extremely difficult to access. And Niall has done, I think, has done an unbelievable job in doing that and making it. We've decentralised a lot of our UEFA licence courses. We've brought courses to Galway, to Cork, to Dublin. Donegal is in the pipeline. Waterford is in the pipeline for UEFA courses. So I think Niall has done an unbelievable job at decentralising that, and we do obviously a number of courses throughout the country at grassroots level. So I think it's making the access to people is really, really important, and us having an open mind towards that we're not just rigid on the face-to-face contact, that we can have some fluidity around that, because there is some massive benefits to everyone's time and resources, because as we know in this country, a really, really high percentage of our coaches are volunteers. So how can we make life easy for them and make it accessible for them without eating into family time, lifetime, coaching time? So we've got to make everything accessible and make it work for them.
And now I suppose finally, just to conclude, 2021 will be a big year, and I suppose that will be highlighted by the new batch of the UEFA Pro license that will be taking place.
Yeah, and as I say, talking about the use of online, like one of the things that we took from the feedback from our previous pro license group was one area that we are significantly involved in at pro license level is self-reflection. And some of the guys really struggled to actually get those self-reflection reports, a written report of what they experienced, their own learning experience, and they really found it difficult to translate that from their own mindset onto paper. So one of the things that we were able to do because of COVID was look at the possibility of having recordings and utilizing the likes of Teams and Zoom, where the guys would actually do the self-reflections verbally, where they would speak or be interviewed. And equally after the courses, because of the success of doing that, we've actually now transitioned all of our reflection process to an online meeting. So they're put into groups of 4 and 5 coaches, and they meet after the contact block and get to discuss everything they learned in the block itself. And we only got the first recordings of those back, and some of them are 2 hours long, and the information, the detail, the discussion is just out of this world. So it's definitely been valuable, because sometimes you can become very traditional and you can always do what you've always done because it works. But now we're in a situation where we're being very innovative and utilizing modern trends in terms of people's times, but also in terms of technology, because you don't always have to be sitting in the same room. I do believe it's the best way to be sitting in the same room, but I certainly believe that we can be much more smart with our time and with our coaches' times in terms of the higher end licensing and as well in the grassroots. But I think 2021 for us will be a signature year. It'll be the start of a new pathway, the start of a learning management system, and a very exciting time for Irish football.
Now, Craig, thanks so much for chatting to me, and best luck in 2021.
Thanks.